Match point, Agassi.
Total shock and disbelief. 22-year-old Andre Agassi in tears has won Wimbledon.
Not many athletes can win sport's biggest prizes while in the grips of a crystal meth addiction or weighed down by a comedy wig. But Andre Agassi isn't most athletes. The American hothead hated tennis, munched amphetamines aged 10, and terrorised the cast of Friends. And he still won 8 Grand Slams. This is his story. Welcome back to The Upshot. I am Jack. Zach is with me as ever.
Hello, Jack.
Hello. And we are joined by returning guest, comedian. It's Mr. Josh Berry.
Thank you so much for having me back on. It is always an absolute treat.
It really is. Listeners will, of course, remember Josh from our Boris Becker episode, which is...
Yeah, very much so. Yeah. Yeah. I haven't done Boris since the podcast. It's good to do it again, let me tell you.
He's back in the room.
Yeah, I feel like I'm with him again. Maybe
Very much so, yeah.
Does he pop up a bit in this pod? I think we might.
He does make a couple of appearances, yeah.
Oh, good.
Gonna need some ad-lib
good.
there.
So they go any wild nights out, maybe?
Yeah, I don't know. They sort of hate each other, I think, him and Agassi. We'll get onto that.
Okay.
Agassi, he's a complex one. I think Boris, it's like quite easy to understand what he is. He's a shagger, good time guy.
Yeah, he's a naughty boy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Whereas Andre is complex.
Yeah, he is a complicated individual, isn't he? He seems more kind of sensitive than Boris. Is that a fair description?
Yeah.
I think he just had an absolutely mad childhood that we'll go into, which, to be honest, I think anybody who had that childhood would turn out quite intense.
He hates tennis,
strange.
right?
He hates tennis,
Yeah, famously said it was never his choice to play tennis.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Should we get into the mad
Yeah, I
childhood?
want to hear
Let's
about
kick
him.
it off.
I want to hear about him.
Let's do it. So, Andre Agassi grew up in Las Vegas. His dad, Mike, worked in a casino there. Mike's a pretty interesting character. So he's Iranian. He moved to the US in the 1950s. He actually boxed for Iran at the 1948 and 1952 Olympics. I
wonder what type of father he's going to be.
It's hard to tell.
I
really.
just don't know.
Probably quite hands-off.
Yeah.
A physical dad. So he lost in the first round both times, and apparently he was convinced that both of his fights were rigged and the whole Olympics was rigged against Iran. So he kind of had this vendetta against the world and this sense of like unfulfilled glory that he tried to live out through his kids. So he forced Andre and his older siblings, he has 3 older siblings, and all of them played tennis relentlessly when they were kids. It kind of became clear at some point that Andre was the real talent. So his dad started putting all of his focus into Andre, which is probably the last thing Andre wanted. So he,
the last chance saloon of a child, never
He's
a
the
good.
youngest as well.
He's the youngest,
Oh, right,
yeah,
God,
yeah. And it sounds really like his dad was basically insane and quite abusive, really. So he'd force Andre to hit 1 million balls a year. So he'd count them. So it was
Sorry, how many is that a day?
2,700 and something. And he'd count them.
Hell.
So
Agassi's dad built his own ball machine called the Dragon.
The
I'm going to be doing some Iranian accents in this episode, just to warn you. I know a lot of Iranians.
Like a Targaryen prince.
Yeah,
just
and
the
I think
dragon.
it's just in their backyard in Vegas, just some concrete, very small. So these balls are coming at him, he said, at 100 miles an hour, and he's not on a full-size court, and he's like 10.
just in the parking lot of some casino.
So his dad's basically out to, like, prove the world wrong.
Yeah, I think so. He'd learned to play tennis from some like US Marines or something who were in Iran at the time, and he basically, I think at some point he discovered how much top tennis players were earning and was like, all right, my kids are going to be that.
And you want, I mean, it's very obvious why Andre Agassi would grow up and be like, I hate tennis now. Because I remember reading that and being like, well, I fucking love tennis. Why do you hate it? It's a great sport. I'd love to play tennis the amount that you play. And then actually, I went and played on the weekends. And
Didn't hit 2,500 balls on Christmas Day.
That was that was probably the reason I didn't make it. Just hit more balls.
His dad does sound absolutely insane though. So apparently he'd leave the house every day with a handful of salt and pepper in each pocket in case he got in a street fight and needed to blind somebody.
That sounds as though he might be seeking out the fights if he's doing that. It doesn't seem to be the kind of thing that's like, oh, a fight might be visited upon you. It's not. Do you know what I mean? It seems the other way around.
He'd pick fights as well, apparently, with people at traffic lights. So if somebody cut him up on the highway, he'd just go to his trunk, pull out an axe or a gun,
and
confront
or a
them.
Gun.
Another time he challenged this other driver to a boxing match, knocked him out on the road, and Agassi says in his book that he remembers just looking out the back window of the car as they pulled away, and this guy was just unconscious in a pool of blood on the road.
It's just like, that's my dad. Yeah, 'cause isn't there a thing that his dad challenges people to fights and they're just like, who is this old guy? Not knowing he's an Olympic boxer.
Yeah.
That's part of what he loves, is that they don't see how good he'll be, and then he just buries him.
Yeah.
So Boris is the prince and Agassi's the street fighter.
100%.
That's what I'm getting from that.
His dad would bet people $10,000 that they couldn't beat Andre when he was 9.
Wow. But have you seen the video? I mean, the videos of him when he's 9. He's got this like pudding bowl haircut, and he's absolutely fucking unbelievable. So like, he must have won quite a lot of money doing that.
Yeah, I bet so. Yeah.
He had quite a lot of pressure for a 9-year-old.
Yeah.
Like, we're behind on the mortgage payments. Can you just beat this grown man? I'm 9. You should be letting me into these sorts of...
But, if you want to win Grand Slams... It's like Djokovic, like Djokovic had a very hard upbringing.
Did
he? Yeah. He's a child of war. And
cool.
and that makes him this like absolute monster. And he's very good at just, like that the whole thing at Wimbledon where he's like, I hope that you have a good night. Like he just...
the booing, yeah.
Yeah. He's like, I know that you are booing me and you are creating the situations that give me the bad mentality. And I will kill you with my mind and my service games. Like, I don't know, I think it creates a good champion.
Yeah.
They've all had like a verse. I think that's what makes him better than Federer. Federer had a bit more of a like chill middle class.
He just doesn't have that extreme place.
He's not
where
a
his mind
killer.
will go. Yeah,
Djokovic would break your legs if it he'd be like,
think...
I'm sorry, but I have to kill you now to win 25 more Grand Slams. He would do that, I think.
Yeah. His dad also had some pretty unorthodox approaches to helping him win. So there's one match when Agassi's 10, and his dad pulls him over to the court before the match and is like, Andre, put this in your mouth, and gives him a capsule filled with speed. And he's like, yeah, just take,
sorry,
take
how
this.
old is he?
He's 10.
He's
10 years
10?
old. 10 years old.
Fucking hell.
And so apparently one of Agassi's brothers had warned him that his dad was going to try this at some point, because he tried it with all of them, and he was like, look, Andre, just do it once, play really badly, and he won't ask you again. So Andre's like, okay, Dad, all right, what is this stuff? And like has this capsule filled with amphetamines, plays his match, and just plays really badly, and afterwards just goes over to his dad and is like this made me feel really sick. Like I can't do this again. And his dad's just like, oh, okay. Well, we won't do that again.
No more speed.
No more amphetamines before matches.
Isn't it 10-year-old? But aren't amphetamines banned? This guy's sailing close to the witch. Surely they'd be banned by the official authority. Fucking hell.
Yeah.
What kind of mentality is
Also,
that?
what's the long-term plan there? What, speed every game?
Yeah.
But this is why I find it strange when like tennis players will have to serve bans or whatever for doing coke. I know it's not good for the image of the sport, but if you've ever seen anyone on coke, they're going to be terrible at tennis. Like Dan Evans is not going to play a better set of tennis.
Although Dan Evans, it was just in his wash bag.
Oh, was that
Wasn't that his excuse?
Was that his excuse?
He said it was in my wash bag and it seeped into my medication. Why was it in your wash bag?
The Richard Gasquet excuse is the best one for that. Have you heard that one? It's that he had a bit of cocaine that was found in his nostril. And he was like, I was kissing a girl in a nightclub, and a little bit of it got in. It's like,
In my nose.
bit of a brag anyway.
And that jockey, Oisin Murphy, did it as well. He said he had sex with a woman who was doing coke and he must have absorbed it. I presume he means with his cock.
What kind of sex?
I know.
How does that work? Or does it just sort of like seep into your bell end without getting too...
He
Sorry.
claims. And they halved his ban. They were like, fair enough.
Yes,
I have a very porous bell end, unfortunately.
So is that the last time his dad gives
That's the
him
only
speed?
time that he gives him speed, and they continue their sort of regular, horribly intense training. And when when Agassi's 13, his dad saves up to send him off to the Nick Boltieri Tennis Academy. So his dad had been watching TV one time and he'd seen this documentary called 60 Minutes, which focused on this tennis academy in Florida, where it's basically a boot camp for aspiring players and train them up to go pro. And he thought this is great for Andre. So he tries to convince Andre, and at first Andre's like, look, I don't want to go to Florida, I've got school here, blah, blah, blah. Eventually his dad convinces him, and he's like, okay, I'll go. And then Andre gets a call from his mum, who's basically like, Andre, you know that 60 Minutes show about the academy, that was an expose. They basically said that this Boltieri guy's running a tennis sweatshop that's fueled by child labour. Like, what? You can't go there.
But have you seen any of the Nick Boltieri output? Because it 100% was that. He was just like, hey, I'm Nick Boltieri. That's how he used to speak. He's like, I'm gonna get you to hit 1,000 forehands in a day. We got all kinds of players here. The Boltieri Academy. We got Maria Sharapova. She's hitting the forehand. She's hitting the backhand. We got Tommy Haas. We got 9 world number ones. He's brilliant. And he's just the most intense guy, and he's charging I think in his later days I don't know what he was like a grand or something for 30 minutes for someone just hit some serves, and he'd just come on the court and he'd just be like, great, hit your serve with a little bit more kick, and that's all. That'll be a grand. And he'd just come off the court. He was just this fucking mental guy. I don't think he even played tennis.
Yeah, what is his...
He was a paratrooper, which does make sense.
That's the American dream.
I don't know how to play tennis. Well, I'm going to start an academy. Everyone's going to be the number one player in the fucking...
Honestly, look up Nick Boltieri if you listen to this podcast. It's an unbelievably accurate impression.
There's a doc, isn't that, called Love Means Zero? About him.
Really?
It's
Really.
There was so he's been married 8 times as well. And he apparently also quite often would talk about himself in the third person. There's a quote I might get used to, as your impression is so good.
Good, okay.
Nick doesn't look back. Nick only goes forward. If you ask me right now to give you names of my 8 wives, I couldn't do it.
Isn't the other thing about him that he trained all the big grunters in tennis?
Yeah, Sharapova, yeah.
And he denies that it was a deliberate tactic, but he's obviously one of the few bits of wisdom he has brought from his paratrooping days is just freak him out. Yeah. So he teaches them all to grunt.
Meanwhile, get out there, make some fucking noise.
So Agassi gets packed off to this tennis academy, and obviously his dad is over the moon. But for Agassi, it's basically the beginning of another nightmare, really. He's been sent off to somebody who's even more mental than his dad.
Somehow. God, that's so horrible, isn't it?
The whole camp sounds like absolute hell. So one of the other players who was there said, Nick's version of commitment is waking up at 5 a.m, running 10 miles a day, staying on court 10 hours, eating celery sticks all day and going to bed at 8. But that's not a life for anybody. Oh my God. Agassi describes the whole thing as like a prison camp. So he said that they were served actual gruel every evening. They'd get bowls with like rice in the bottom, and then this grey slop with like gelatinous lumps of meat in it.
That's quite a commitment to making an environment hellish to get actual gruel.
Yeah.
Yeah, gotta toughen those kids up. Get the gruel in there.
They'd sleep in bunk beds in these military-style barracks built with plywood as well.
Oh my God! Because who else was there at the time? Was Jim Courier?
Jim Courier
there at the time?
Okay. Yeah. So Agassi describes the camp as Lord of the Flies with 4 hands, which is.
That's what the kids bastards to each other.
Yeah, so on the one hand, there's this insane discipline of their training regime, but at the same time, it's quite anarchic. So he tells this story about these 2 boys who have quite a long-running but kind of low-level feud. He says, it's mostly taunts, teasers, minor stuff, until one boy ups the ante. For days, he urinates and defecates in a bucket. Then late one night, he bursts into the other boy's barracks and dumps the bucket on his head.
Oh, God.
Oh, my God. Who was that? What did that boy go on to do? Do you know?
Is that Jim Courier?
Yeah, Jim Courier.
Guessing this guy didn't crack the top 100.
Buckets of shit.
Yeah.
It's no surprise that he hates tennis, right? When you look at his upbringing, like first his dad and then this it's like apocalyptic.
Also, at least he got to be a
World.
star. What became of all the other kids in that academy who don't become pro tennis players?
Yeah, who were
and have
just
lived
like
through that?
who were just like quite good at tennis,
Yeah,
right? Like,
yeah.
that must be fucking
Shell-shocked
awful.
kids crawling out of the bunker.
Yeah, I guess they turn into the next Mike Agassi or Nick Boltieri. You become a coach and just put all your issues onto some child. Start feeding them speed.
Hey, it works, all right? It fucking works. We got 9 number ones. Can't name any of them. Doesn't matter.
When does it start like improving for Andre? Surely
So
at
he
some
does.
point.
He does start to rebel at some point from in this this horrible environment. So he tries to run away from the camp a couple of times. Gets brought back. He starts turning up to practice wearing jeans. Slightly lower on the scale.
It's a bit of a self-defeating rebellion, isn't it? You're just
No, but
like,
isn't there I read there was a final, a junior competition, and in the final he wore jeans as a flex, and he thought it was fucking sick, and all the other kids loved it. He won, and then he got back to the camp, and Nick Boltieri has these meetings of like all the kids in the camp. It's like 200 people, and he was like, Andre Agassi, stand up, and like bollocks him in front of everyone. And I think he was made to like, sort of Oliver style, like scrub all the toilets for the next 2 weeks, grounded,
hose the shit off some of his fellow.
He had to do weeding,
change the bucket.
Yeah. They get into a massive row though, I think, at that point. And Agassi's basically like, look, this is bullshit, man. I don't want to go to school, because they had to go and do these school classes as well. It's like, I just want to play tennis. I just want to play tennis all the time. And
I mean, Nick's probably like, yeah, go for it.
Yeah,
man."
exactly. No, apparently, this is the point where Agassi kind of loses it, and Boltieri finally starts to respect him, and is like, yeah,
I love that.
He's 14.
His horrible manipulative game was worse, and he's like,
You know what, Andre? I respect you now.
Because they have some massive argument about Andre wins a panda at a fun fair in some like shooting game, and Nick's like, I want that panda for my kid. He becomes obsessed with it, and Andre's like, no, it's my fucking panda. And then he decides, I'm going to give it to him. So he breaks into Boltieri's office and leaves the panda in there for him. And like, calls him a cunt during the argument. And at that point, Boltieri's like, I respect you now. It's like weird psychological.
yeah. Wow, it's actually a real credit to Andre Agassi how well adjusted he became. With all of these, like,
Although,
okay,
we've got a lot of bad
see.
adjusted,
Okay.
poorly adjusted to get through before we get there. So he turns pro at 16, and he kind of struggles at first, actually. It's not like an immediate shot to stardom. He's like doing okay enough on the tour that he's making enough money to continue touring, but he's basically spending all the money just supporting the existence. And at that point, he really considers quitting tennis. There's a moment where he just goes to a park and gives all his rackets away to homeless guys. He's just like, keep them, sell them.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
guess
I
you
was
could
going to be
pawn
like, what do homeless guys love? Tennis. They love tennis, man. Seriously, work on your backhand. It'd be amazing. That sounds
Or he's like,
such a shit
Just want a
impression.
cigarette, mate.
Yeah. Can I have some food?
or he's like,
No, you can have the head radical. It's amazing.
he's like, my dad's on the way and he's got an axe, so you're going to do something to protect him.
Got any Tabasco? You might need it for the eyes. Apparently, there's a moment where he calls his dad and is like, I'm just thinking of packing it in. His dad's like, well, what are you going to do? You can't do anything. You have no qualifications. He's like, cheers. You've kind of boxed me into this corner. Anyway,
God, that's so fucked up, isn't it? That really is. The poor guy.
Yeah, so he kind of has no choice. But anyway, it starts to turn more promising for him. And in 1987, he wins his first tournament in Rio de Janeiro. He's only 17, and he wins a $90,000 prize. So this is his first big money. And he comes back, like, he's delighted. The whole family are already rooting for him. His dad's like, oh, you fucked up the third set. But still, like, kind of loving it. He's happy that his son's on his way. And he persuades his dad to let him buy a car. Because obviously he's 17 now. It's time. And not just any car. Andre persuades him that he should buy a $37,000 white Corvette. It's like a proper sports car.
Yeah, no, that's serious.
For a 17-year-old to
As
be
a
rocking. I'm
17-year-old.
surprised his dad allows him that sort of indulgence.
I can imagine his dad being allowing him some pretty mental shit, to be honest. As long as he's winning.
As long as you take a speed tablet.
From the man who gave his son speed at 10 years old, I think he'll be all right with it.
I think Andre's argument is like, I've got to drive around the country, so let me have it. Anyway, so although he allows him to buy the car, he doesn't let the purchase go by without a bit of drama. So they go to the car dealership, and you get taken into the room at the end to like finalize all the paperwork. The salesman's like, "Okay, here, if you just take a look through this," and his dad's looking at it, and he's like, "What's this $49.99 charge?" And the salesman's like, "Oh, no, it's just for paperwork." And he's like, "It's not my fucking paper. That's your paper. Pay for your own fucking paper." And Andre's like, Dad, please. Like, it's a $37,000 car. Like, who cares about $50? And he's like, "They are screwing you, Andre. They are screwing me. The world is trying to screw me." And he storms out into the main showroom.
It's a real tour of the world in accents.
Yeah, we got them all today. Got all
Which
the
part of which continent was he from at the start and the end of the sentence?
I think that was all solid.
No, that was good. It was good.
There's more. Anyway, so Mike, Andre's dad, then storms out the salesman's office into the main showroom where the managers who actually own the car dealership are they're lined up on a counter, and he like goes right up to them, eyeballs them, puts his fists up, and he's like, "You think you're safe back there? You think you're safe behind that counter? Come out here and fight me!" And he's like got his fists up trying to fight them. It's like properly kicking off. Everyone's staring. Eventually, Andre's like, "Dad, let's just go. Let's just leave." So his dream of the white Corvette is in tatters.
Oh, no.
Anyway, gets him out of there.
$49.
Yeah.
For fuck's sake.
Anyway, they get home, and Mike's just like needs to go off and calm down. Goes and swings his axe at some people or whatever it is that he does to blow off some steam. And Andre decides like, "I want that fucking car." So he goes back to the dealership where they're all there, like still just kind of recovering.
Just crying.
Yeah, and eventually they're like,
You just see him coming and the shutters just come down.
"Is your dad with you?" Anyway, they let him in and they give him the keys, and they're all just like, "Good luck, man." Like, I don't know what the hell that was. They're really like, "You poor bastard."
You can have the $49 for therapy. You're going to need it, man.
Anyway, back in Andre's Corvette, he's now taking this on every possible trip. He's cruising around in it. And he's kind of taking the piss a bit. So on one occasion, he's going to Scottsdale, Arizona for a tournament, which is not too far from Vegas. It's a sort of 5-hour drive. So he's like, "I'll take the Corvette." Jumps in it, and he's speeding the whole way there. He's doing like 100 miles an hour down the freeway. And as he crosses the state line into Arizona, he's pulled over by a cop, and he gets a speeding ticket. And he doesn't care. It's like footballers now with parking, right? They're just like, "I'll pay the ticket. I'm making so much money." Anyway, so he stops for lunch, and then he gets back in the car, driving again, and he's doing another 100-mile-an-hour stint when he's pulled over again. And the officer's like, "You already had a ticket, have you?" And he's like, yes, I have. Officer sort of talks into his radio, and then he goes, "You're going to come with me, boy. The judge wants you back in Kingman, Arizona." And Andre's like, "What? No, I've got a tournament." He's like, "Nah, you're coming with me, boy." And he says it then starts to get a little bit Deliverance. Like he said, I could sort of hear the plinking banjos as I head into backcountry. And eventually he's led into this courtroom, which is just like a shed. And he said there was an elderly judge in a cowboy hat and boots. And he's genuinely like, "Am I actually in a real courtroom, or is this like, am I being kidnapped? Is this like fake?" And he's looking on the wall for the sort of certificates that prove it's a real courthouse, but he said it was just dead animal heads on the wall. Anyway, the judge starts questioning him, and he's like, "What's going on?" All the questions are just about tennis. And for 25 minutes, the judge starts giving him opinions on his game. He's like, "Oh, you need to go deeper on your backhand." And he's like, "What is going on?" Eventually, the judge is like, "Sign here, boy." And he's signing stuff, but it's like photos of himself. It's not documents.
It's just Nick Bollettieri in a mask. He pulls off the mask.
He's like, "Andre, get to your fucking tournament. Stop speeding, you little shit."
I mean, it might as well be, because sentencing comes around, and the judge goes, "I sentence you to give them hell down in Scottsdale," and bangs his hammer. And Andre's like, "What the fuck?" And it turns out that there is no like criminal case here. The judge just wanted to meet Andre Agassi. He'd heard he was speeding through his state, and it's like, perfect. On you go. Apparently he turns up super late for this tournament, has to like speed into the parking lot and run onto court for the like initial hit. So yeah, he's got some fans at this point.
That's such a small town American story.
That's amazing.
Take me to that world.
That's a great misuse of power. You know, of all the misuse of power stories that you hear, that's a nice one at least.
Yeah, I think that judge is probably abusing his power in less cuddly ways.
You could be right. You could be right.
I've seen enough films. Anyway, this is around the stage when Andre hits the big time. So he gets to the semis of the French Open and the US Open as a teenager. He actually is only playing those slams. So Australia, he never does in his early years because it's just too far. I think he just can't be fucked with it. Yeah.
What, the guy that his dad is like basically kneeling on his neck to get him to like play and win all tournaments? Just like, what?
I don't think in those days it was as common to just play all 4 slams, because he also he plays Wimbledon once and he's so annoyed by the traditionalism and the white kit rule that he says, I'm not playing it again. And for years he doesn't play.
Won't let him wear his jeans.
Yeah, exactly. Can't wear my jeans. Yeah. To be fair, they might have also been taking exception to his hair. So obviously,
is he wearing the wig at this point?
Well, so even from a young age, he started rocking these mullets and these sort of like Wayne's World glam rock David Bowie looks with this like.
Well, those are back in fashion now.
Yeah, they actually are. Yeah. Anyway, he was rocking these. He's the OG, but from the age of 19, Andre starts balding. And for him, this is a big fucking deal because he's very, very image conscious. I mean, his ad campaign for, I think it's Nike, is "Image is everything." That was the slogan. Yeah. People used to always shout that at him, and he kind of hated it, but he was very image conscious. And so he decides to start wearing wigs. And yeah, they're not just any wigs, are they? I mean, we're looking at a couple now.
Yeah, that's sort of Britney Spears kind of wig.
It does lead to a few mishaps, his wig. So 1990, he gets to the French Open final, and it's his first Grand Slam final, so it's a big deal. He's very nervous. But the night before, disaster strikes in the shower when his wig begins to fall apart. So my question with this is that I'd have thought with wigs you take them off when you're in the shower, but I guess it's some kind of semi-permanent thing.
I think it's a long-termer.
So
it must glue it on.
It's glued to your head.
Yeah, you've got to wash it. Yeah, because it must really.
But is that the problem? He uses the wrong conditioner.
He uses the wrong. Yeah.
Always read the label, especially if you're wearing a wig.
And it's the night before the French Open final.
Like the amount you'd sweat. Surely it's gonna like if it's glued on, that's gonna dissolve the glue. Right?
Yeah. Maybe it was just wear and tear.
So like the wig would come forward, and suddenly it's like your eyebrows level, and then you're like fuck, and then you have to sort of pull it back across your head as you're. Yeah. God.
Anyway, he's panicking because he's got the biggest match of his life the next day, and he decides that the only solution is for him to clip it back together. So he's got like dozens and dozens of clips in his hair, but he realizes the only way that it will stay on is if he keeps his head completely still. So
great for power production, by the way. You're not gonna. That's what they say. That's what all the coaches say. They're like, if you shank a ball, if you like frame it, they're like, well, keep your head still. So actually, that could be a blessing in disguise.
Okay, maybe. Yeah.
Was it? Did he win?
Not really.
No. Okay.
No. So he says that the next day he goes out on court. He's got all these clips trying to hold it in place, but the only thing that he can think about through the game is my wig's about to fall off. My wig's about to fall off.
Oh.
So he's just terrified of being humiliated, not thinking about his game at all, and
didn't he just want a fucking cap?
Yeah,
or just ditch the wig.
That should be the moment of saying I've shaved my head.
Yeah,
because I can understand. Imagine your sort of set point at Roland Garros in the final, and you're running for a point, and your hair mullet.
What if you're 2 sets of love down, and then like as a psychological tactic, you're just like surprise, motherfucker, and then you're completely bald, and it's like, oh my god, what the fuck is this? And then suddenly you win.
Yeah, I think if you don't,
it's very shit in a bucket. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? It's very get in their head.
That could have been great.
Yeah, you should
get their attention.
I think there's been some hair loss up there.
I think of all the crowds of a Grand Slam to do it in front of, I wouldn't want to do it in front of the French. They're quite image conscious themselves.
True.
The gasps.
Yeah, they would gasp.
Aussie could go down well.
You bald piece of shit. That crowd, like someone drops their racket in, disappointment, and they'll immediately just be like, yeah, you're a piece of shit.
Yeah. You want to do it in US or Australian, I think. It's a hardcore
I reckon
prank.
Wimbledon, because everyone's so repressed, no one would say anything about it.
Yeah, they pretend nothing happened.
They'd be like, oh gosh, have you? No, that's fine. Go on, crack on.
You changed your T-shirt? Something's different.
Yeah.
So Andre is...
Anyways, so later that year, he gets a second shot at Grand Slam glory when he gets to the US Open final against Pete Sampras. So him and Pete knew each other from the youth circuit, and apparently Andre had actually said to his coach at one point that he feels bad for Sampras because he knows he's never going to make it as a pro. Anyway, Sampras beats him in that final, and it's the start of this long-running rivalry. So Sampras is famously the best server, Agassi's the best returner. But the two of them, they're fixtures on the Grand Slam circuit, getting to finals, getting to semi-finals. In 1991, Agassi meets Steffi Graf for the first time. So she's obviously one of the top women's players of the era as well, German. And Agassi becomes pretty infatuated with her. And during this tournament, he manages to pass her a note asking her out for dinner. She's got a boyfriend, but he's head over heels in love with her. She doesn't respond to his note. So
classic.
This becomes...
Sounds like a law case brewing, doesn't it?
Yeah, what did he write on that note?
It remains unfulfilled, though, this crush on Steffi, for now, at least. There's another good story from 1992. Agassi plays in the Davis Cup for the US against Argentina, and the night before his last match, him and John McEnroe, who's in the team as well, go out and just get really drunk. Stay out till 4 a.m.
John McEnroe just said that, being like, let's fucking nail some fucking drinks, am I right? You jerk. Was he a big drinker, really?
I don't know, or maybe Agassi took him off the road.
There's a video doing the rounds at the moment, Liam Gallagher saying.
Yes, I was literally just about to say, he was like, yeah, fucking just finish this gig, man. Like, our pupils are out here. And then John McEnroe was like, hey, man, that gig was fucking awesome, man. You want a spliff? And then he's like, fucking yes, John McEnroe, you fucking maniac. And then he's like, and he's fucking there with the guitar, and he's like playing it like, bam, 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 you cannot be serious, bam, bam, bam. And we're like, fucking, this is mental. And he's like, was it in or was it out? And we're like, fucking yes, John McEnroe. I fucking love Liam Gallagher so much. But that is so believable, like John McEnroe just said, being like, fucking, you want a spliff? Come on, man. Let's fucking play some music together, you piece of shit.
You can see those two getting on like a house on fire.
Yeah. It's that energy. It's why like I always found it weird when McEnroe, like when Kyrgios at the start, like McEnroe kind of slagged Kyrgios off a bit and be like, who is this guy who's like complaining all the time and, you know, he's got no sense of decorum or decency and he's just shouting at people. I mean, what a jerk. You'd be like, blah. It sounds a bit like you, John, to be honest. Like, I don't know what the fuck you're on about. But yeah, sorry. I can actually, of course, believe that John McEnroe is a passy animal.
Yeah. So anyway, both of them turn up the next day to their matches really hungover. Agassi goes out wearing these Oakley sunglasses, and he wears them for the whole match, wins, and a photo of him ends up on the cover of Tennis magazine, and it causes a huge surge in sales of Oakley sunglasses. And a few weeks later, Agassi wakes up one morning and a delivery lorry pulls up outside his house, and they get a Dodge Viper off the back of it, and it's a gift from the CEO of Oakley.
Wow. Dodge Viper. Wait, this is the red one with like the white
stripe in the middle.
Yeah, that's very cool.
It's quite a staple of like video games.
I was going to say that was the car I always used to choose on the PlayStation.
Gran Turismo.
Yes, exactly.
Okay, so back in 1992, after 3 Grand Slam final defeats, Agassi finally breaks his hoodoo at Wimbledon, and he has a really tough run in that tournament. He beats Boris Becker in the quarterfinals. That's the match where we
very much so.
Very much, yes. We talked about it in the Boris Becker episode. It was in this match that Agassi works out that Boris points his tongue in the direction he's going to serve, and he's basically rumbled him then, and he wins the match.
Do you think he used to do that with the women that he chose as well? Like he'd be like, you know, like circulating around Nobu, and then just be like, like
follow the tongue. The tongue knows first.
Okay, I'm sensing it. Where's my tongue? My tongue is taking me to the toilet. I've never been to Nobu, but I walked past it for the first time the other day. And I brought back all the memories.
Yeah. Sort of live show venue material, isn't it?
Oh my God, how good would that be?
Sort of retrace the steps.
Oh, that would be like a sort of walking tour.
Immersive. Yeah, the immersive Boris Becker tour.
I could be Boris Becker.
Yeah, you're Boris, yeah.
I'd dye myself ginger, and then I'd be like, yeah, so back in the 19 whatever it was, I was here, and I was doing this position. You know, that would be amazing.
Yeah, so he beats Boris in the quarters, John McEnroe in the semis, and then Ivanisevic in the final. So all the big dogs, really. And after that final, Agassi gets off court, and the first thing he does is call his dad. And he's like, you know, he's going to be so proud. He calls up, he's like, Pops, it's me. Can you hear me? What do you think? And there's just silence on the other end of the line. And then his dad finally replies, you had no business losing that 4th set. And Agassi's just like, what? He's like, but, it's good I won the 5th set, huh, Pops? And there's just silence. And then you can just hear this sobbing in the background. And he says that, he realises that in this moment, for the first time, his dad is finally proud of him, but he just has no way of actually expressing it, which in some ways is quite sweet that his dad has finally, his dreams have been achieved, but at the same time, it's just also shows what a horrible guy he is. He can't even bring himself to say well done in this moment.
Yeah, still criticising him.
Yeah.
Also, I think after
He's
that
just
phone
extremely
call,
repressed.
someone's getting it with the salt and pepper.
Yeah.
The only way he knows to express emotion is to just empty his own pockets full of salt and pepper and tit ice. I just want to feel something.
To axe himself.
Yeah.
Anyway, so that's his first Grand
That's
Slam.
his first Grand Slam, and after he gets off the phone to his dad, Agassi is whisked off to the winner's ball, and there's a good quote from his book. He says, "We're instantly set upon by silver-haired British couples. The men have hair in their ears, and the women smell like old liqueur."
He does paint a picture of Britain in the 90s as being depressing and grey.
I can imagine having met some people, not all, but some people who are members of that club. That isn't entirely inaccurate as a statement.
Agassi's excited though, because traditionally at these winners' balls, the men's and the women's champions do the first dance together, and guess who won the women's? None other than Steffi Graf.
Nice.
So, he thinks this is finally his chance, but the ball is cancelled. He's gutted.
Why?
No, the dance is cancelled.
Sorry, the dance is cancelled.
Yeah, they get rid of the traditional dance.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cock blocks by the AELTC. Classic. That's why he hates. Why he hates him.
Maybe Steffi had a word.
You know the guy who wrote you that really creepy note?
You know that stalker guy?
So the love goes on unfulfilled.
It continues being unfulfilled. It's not all bad though. So in 1992, Agassi begins dating Barbara Streisand, who is 28 years older than him. She's 50, he's 22. And the press goes mad for their relationship. A lot of it focuses on this age difference, which is an interesting factor. Agassi said, "The public outcry only adds spice to our connection. It makes our friendship feel forbidden, taboo, another piece of my overall rebellion. Dating Barbara Streisand is like wearing hot lava."
I feel like the next words in that sentence are just, "Yeah, fuck you, Dad." Even his girlfriends, it's kind of about like pissing his dad and Nick Boltieri off.
Anyway, Andre and Barbara are still dating at Wimbledon the following year, and the press are obsessed. Barbara turns up to watch all of his matches from the stands, and the paparazzi are just following them everywhere. They go out for dinner one night, and Agassi has to hide in the boot of the car. His driver drives him to the restaurant. He slips out to meet her.
That's 90s Hollywood, isn't it?
Yeah, that's very cool.
Yeah. It kind of peters out though, which is a bit of a shame. And around this time, I think it's the following year, he starts going out with Brooke Shields, who is a child star turned actress and model who is probably most famous for being nominated for 6 Razzies.
What's a Razzie?
They're an award for bad acting performances. So she was nominated for Worst Actress, Worst Supporting Actress, Worst Actress of the Decade, and Worst Actress of the Century.
How many people are you up against in of the century category? 6?
I don't know, actually. That's a good question. So did
she ever win any actual awards?
She did win some. It's actually unfair of me to say she's most famous for that. That was what I picked out from her.
She's a sort of TV star, isn't she? Law and Order.
Yeah.
Okay.
Anyway, they get set up by a mutual friend. Brooke is in South Africa filming some presumably awful film at the time. And she's
Put your claws away.
Well, I'm just looking at her nominations.
Yeah, okay.
Anyway, Agassi and Brooke Shields get set up by this mutual friend. She's in South Africa filming this film in a tent with no phone connection. So the only way they can communicate is by fax. So they've never met each other, and they're just sending these faxes that begin kind of lightly flirty, and very quickly they're sharing their innermost secrets, which is, it gets very intense very quickly.
Anyway, the Brooke Shields relationship, they eventually meet up, and it really goes from there. It feels like a perfect fit. And the relationship gives him a lot of confidence, Andre. And in 1995, he decides to take the big step of shaving his head.
Buzz.
No more wigs. So he actually only reveals in his 2009 book that he'd been wearing wigs. Everyone thought that he just
really? Or just
shaved it off one day. Yeah.
Overnight.
Well, yeah, I don't know. To be fair, he kind of eases in, so he keeps his head covered for a while. Remember, he wears bandanas. So, like, he says, I shave my head, but we're looking at a picture of him. I'll link to
He makes it, genuinely, well, firstly, I think he looks great bald. Secondly, I think he makes it work. I'm not so sure about the goatee.
And their sideburns. He looks like a pirate. His fans start dressing as pirates.
But sort of a slightly kind of sexually deviant pirate, you know?
Do you think he's wearing the bandana because there's still remnants of glue on his scalp?
Anyway, so I guess shaving off his wig is good for him because this is when he wins the Australian Open against none other than his old rival, Pete Sampras. And he hits a real hot streak. Maybe it's just easier to play without a fucking massive wig glued
Probably is, yeah, if you're not being weighed down by the weight.
Worrying about it falling off.
Yeah.
Because this is when his focus turns to capturing the world number one spot for the first time. And going into Indian Wells, he knows that if he beats Pete Sampras in the final, he will get the number one spot. Sadly, he loses over 3 sets. But his disappointment over that is immediately overtaken by concern because he gets a call saying his dad is in hospital and he's seriously ill. It's a scary moment. Andre's terrified. He rushes to hospital, gets there, and his dad's got loads of tubes connected to him, machines are beeping. It's quite scary, loads of nurses around. And his dad's, he can't really speak, but when Andre walks in, he's suddenly trying to say something and he's going, bah, bah. And they're like, what's he saying? What's he saying? And someone's like, get him a pen and paper. And his dad just slowly scrawls the words and it just says, backhand. And then he's like, you should have hit to Sampras's backhand. Even at that moment when he's on death's door, he still can't resist being like, you fucked up at Indian Wells. And if you'd listened to me, you would have won.
As a last... Is this the last
No. He makes a recovery, I'm pleased to report. So.
But as a potential last series of last words,
why didn't you listen to me? Anyway, the next week he plays Sampras again and he decides to hit to his backhand and he wins. And for the first time, Andre Agassi is world number one. Thanks to his dad.
It's an amazing bit of tactical advice, that, isn't it? Like a world-class shot. It's just like, just hit it to the backhand. You're like, oh, fine. Oh, well, just hit it to the backhand. Oh, right.
I thought that. To be fair, it did work. Apparently when his dad does it as well, all his siblings are in hospital. And when they see the word backhand, all the siblings are like, oh, for fuck's sake. Whereas Andre's like, oh, yeah.
So he was finally going to tell him that he loves him.
Yeah, exactly. Those are the words you think are coming. I love your backhand. Just can't do it. Anyway, that's the real hot streak. So he goes on this 26 match winning streak. He's on top of the world. He's picking up Grand Slams for fun until he gets to the US Open final where he meets Sampras once again and Sampras defeats him. And that really knocks his confidence. Having been on this amazing streak, he suddenly feels awful. And Agassi says, it took me 2 years to get over that defeat. It kicks off a major decline on and off the court. So first of all, things are not great with Brooke Shields. They've been going out for a couple of years. There's this general sense that they just live quite separate lives. So he's often in his Vegas kind of bachelor pad setup, and Brooke is in LA in their place there. Like, he goes to the house in LA and he's like, none of my stuff's here. It doesn't really feel like my house. We're living these quite separate lives. And Brooke just doesn't get this thing that he hates tennis. She doesn't really believe him. Anyway, things for her career are going really well, and Brooke gets a part on Friends.
Oh, I remember this.
Now, Friends is the biggest TV show in the world at the time. It's actually hard to capture in the digital age how big a deal it was. It was like, 40 million people every week are tuning in. So it's a big deal, and Brooke actually says to him, this is my US Open. And Andre's like, if you wanted to turn me off from something, that was how to do it. She just doesn't, I don't want to hear a tennis analogy. But he's kind of intrigued. So he says like, oh, I'll come along and watch you filming. She's got this recurring guest role, a couple of episodes. You probably remember it. She plays Joey Tribbiani's stalker. So the premise is that she's this crazed fan who thinks that the character Joey's playing in a soap opera is really him. He's this like neurosurgeon, Dr. Drake Ramore. And there are these scenes she shoots with Joey, which Andre comes to the filming. He turns up on set. And, it's one of those where, like, there's a studio audience at Friends, meets all the actors before, and they're like, oh, Andre, like, you just stand behind the camera here and, like, watch the whole thing. And he's kind of hating it. He can't be fucked. He's, like, in a bit of a low place in the world, but he decides to do it. And he stands there for this famous scene, which let's watch a clip of it now. People probably remember it's the finger-sucking scene.
These hands, these miracle, magical, life-giving hands. Oh, just to be near them, touch them, maybe even lick one.
All right. Just one.
No, that is quite erotic, actually.
So she's sucking Joey's hands with her eyes sort of rolling back in her head. So it's a famous scene. She's got her fingers in Joey's mouth. And the interesting thing is apparently Brooke ad-libbed a lot of it. So in the script, it was kind of like she just sort of like gently like kissed the fingers. But she goes and like fully sort of, if I may use the term, kind of deep throats Joey's fingers. And apparently the whole crew...
She goes full sucky.
Yeah, she really does it OTT. And apparently the whole crew are like in awe. They're loving it. The studio audience is lapping it up. Everyone is just finding it so funny. Except, that is, for Andre Agassi, who's standing sort of 9 feet away watching his girlfriend suck the fingers of a famous Hollywood actor. And, I think most people would say it's her job. But Andre doesn't see it that way. And he's...
I don't know. Would you... Okay.
Are you a jealous boyfriend?
Well, I don't know.
Surely that is part of the deal with if you're dating an actor.
Yeah.
I think that's
like,
true.
Licking the hand. Like, it was a very erotic hand lick, but there's potential that they're going to have to do more than that on screen.
Well, and also, so apparently the thing is that Brooke at the end of it keeps saying, I want to do another take. I want to make it more extreme. And so they do like, I'm talking like 24 takes. And Andre's just there growing more and more livid, like turning red, steam coming out of his ears. And like he thinks she's humiliating him basically because everyone's watching, the audience is watching, and he's a complicated guy. Anyway, eventually she's like, I want to do one more take. And then she does the finger sucking, probably the take that we've seen in the clip. And it's really over the top. And eventually Andre's just had enough. And they're like, and cut. And Andre just storms out the studio, like slams the door and just like bursts out into the car park. And everyone sees, the cast of Friends, the crew, the studio audience, everyone's just got their mouth open being like, did Andre Agassi just storm out in protest at his girlfriend sucking Matt LeBlanc's fingers? It's a mental scene.
That must be so funny, like Matt LeBlanc having to sort of talk Andre Agassi down after that as well.
Well, so Brooke goes out after him, and he's just like, you humiliated me. I can't believe you do this. And she's like, what are you doing? Like, this is one of the most important moments of my career. Like, this isn't about you. Anyway, Andre won't hear it, and he gets in his car and drives back to Vegas from LA. It's a meaningful
I
drive.
definitely wouldn't do that. Just for once a day.
He gets home, and the rage doesn't stop there. He starts smashing up his prized possessions. In his book, he says, one by one, I smash up all my trophies. Davis Cup, smash. US Open, smash. Wimbledon, smash. I pull the rackets out my tennis bag and try to smash the glass coffee table, but only the rackets shatter, which is quite funny. That would make you more angry.
Yeah.
So that's a pretty mental moment. Everyone on Friends is like, fucking hell. They have to carry on filming, obviously. So Brooke sort of pretends it's not happening. But in a future interview, she says, I learned later that Andre was addicted to crystal meth at that point. Which does slightly explain it.
That does explain quite a lot.
Yeah. So apparently Andre feels in that moment that like everyone's laughter is at his expense, when obviously it's not. It's at the scene. He feels like everyone's looking at him, which, to be honest, is the sort of thought that would run through a crystal meth head's head, right? Paranoia.
And also a tennis player, because they take themselves quite seriously.
And they're on the court on their own, so they're used to audiences all looking at them.
Yeah.
And their dad, and all that cocktail of simmering resentment and fear and paranoia.
Yeah.
And then you chuck in a crystal meth problem, and we're really cooking at this point. So, the crystal meth addiction. Let's talk about it. So, Andre has this assistant who actually was an old childhood friend called Slim. And Slim was like a friend.
That is such a meth,
yeah, really. Straight out of Breaking Bad, isn't it?
It literally is.
What's the guy in Breaking Bad called?
Really Badger.
Badger and Skinny Pete.
Skinny Pete, yeah.
And chuck Slim in that mix. So Slim is an old high school friend who, like, things had never really worked out right for him. And when Andre got rich and famous, he decided to take him on as a sort of assistant, odd jobs guy. I think you might call it a bagman, but that is unfortunate given what transpires. Slim does odd jobs for him. He's on the payroll.
That's nominative determinism, isn't it, bagman?
And one day, Slim and Andre are in his bachelor pad in Vegas, and they're both stressed. Slim's wife's having a baby. Andre's relationship with Brooke is kind of falling apart, and things aren't great. And Slim has an idea. He says, do you want to get high with me? And Andre's like, high? What do you mean? On what? And he's like, gack. And he goes, what the hell's gack? And Slim's like, crystal meth. Anyway, so Slim says they call it gack because that's the sound you make when you're high. Your mind's going so fast, all you can say is gack, gack, gack. Never heard that, but anyway, bit of trivia for you. Possibly wrong. Anyway, Andre's like, well, why would I want that? I feel like that all the time. And Slim's like, nah, man, this shit make you feel like Superman. And so Andre's like, yeah, fuck it, let's get high. And so you're probably wondering, like, what is Andre Agassi like on crystal meth? Is he like bouncing off the walls, smacking forehands on a practice court, stabbing a picture of his dad with an axe? Actually, he decides to go spring cleaning round his house. So he says, I go tearing around the house, cleaning it from top to bottom. I dust the furniture. I scour the tub. I make the beds. I sweep the floors. When there's nothing left to clean, I do laundry. All the laundry. I don't want to sit down. If I had a table, I'd polish it. If I had leather shoes, I'd shine them. And then he says, I look high and low for Slim. He's out in the garage, taking apart the engine of his car and putting it back together again. Which, I was, I'm warming to crystal meth.
Yeah.
I've got
sort
some
of like,
chores.
You just do it once a month.
Yeah.
Sounds great.
That's exactly how it starts, isn't it? Just on special occasions. He does say, I didn't sleep for 2 days.
Oh, okay. That's a bad advert for crystal meth. All right, I don't want to take it now.
And I think also they say your first time's the good time, and then it gets nasty. And to be fair, this does precipitate quite a big decline in Andre's life, really. So he then heads to the Australian Open, and he can't really sleep on the plane, so he takes a load of sleeping pills and vodka, survives the flight, and sort of staggers off it to a hotel room where he collapses and bangs his head on a glass table. And so the next day he turns out to play, and he's got this like gash on his head, and he decides also to shave his head properly because it's grown a little bit. So he appears on the Rod Laver Arena court, with a gashed head, it's shaved, and he's got no sun cream on. So by the end of the match, which he loses, he's burnt the top of his head. Ooh. And he's a state, basically. And everyone's like, well, why is he losing in the first round? Why has he got all these ailments? And off the court, he's eating loads. So he's just chaining hamburgers. Apparently people keep saying to him, like, do you always eat this much? He does have a chubby phase, actually.
Yeah.
Anyway, the decline continues at the French Open in 96 when he is repeatedly warned for calling himself a motherfucking cocksucker. Apparently just every unforced error, he's like, you motherfucker.
That's kind of his catchphrase, his favourite
cocksucker, yeah.
Favourite swear.
Unfortunate sort of internalised homophobia.
Yeah, but it's quite MTV 90s stuff, isn't it?
Yeah, no. He's not going to be out of
his time.
Yeah, of course.
Anyway, he chooses this moment when his private life is in complete tatters and his relationship's really flagging to propose to Brooke Shields. So he
always
thinks,
a good sign.
It's that classic move. It's like, maybe if we get married, everything will just be fine.
People sometimes do this with children.
Yeah. I think, to be honest, I had... Anyway, so he proposes to Brooke Shields, who says yes, ignoring all the fucking chaos in their lives.
Does he do it in a what is it, a vodka sours, or does he do it?
What, like Boris Becker?
Yeah, like Boris Becker. Or does he do it with a bit more? Does he do it like on a sort of bed of crystal meth?
You gotta sift through the crystal meth.
Yeah, find the real crystal.
Yeah.
It's a diamond that's made of crystal. Oh, not good.
I like it. He's getting even sloppier.
Yeah.
Well, I'm really eating a lot of hamburgers in the moment.
Anyway, so Brooke's like, great, yeah, I'm up for this. She decides to go on a wedge shred diet because, Hollywood.
Wedge shred,
and
classic.
for inspiration, she tapes a picture to the fridge of the woman she most wants to look like. Who does she choose? Steffi Graf. And Brooke is not aware of Andre's crush on Steffi Graf.
Oh, okay.
Possibly subliminally. It's a bit of a fucking coincidence. Anyway, so she decides she wants to look like her.
Has he just been talking so much about what a nice ass
Yeah.
Steffi Graf has?
If only you looked a bit more like Steffi Graf.
Maybe I'd love you then. Would that make you love me?
Maybe I'll stop taking crystal meth if you...
Anyway, the wedding day is colourful. So Andre breaks into these nervous sweats. Apparently his suit is genuinely sodden, even from the outside. Like, everyone is looking at it being like, what the fuck? Why is he so wet? And they go for like a big Hollywood service. So there's 4 paparazzi helicopters hovering over their house waiting for Brooke to get in the car. So they have to have a decoy bride who's just an actor. And Andre says he wishes he'd been a decoy husband and could have just gone off peacefully. So
that's a tough thing to
anyway,
hear.
they do it though.
And
they have a nice service. Although one person who doesn't enjoy the service so much is Mike Agassi, who walks out in the middle. Can't handle
No
it.
axe murdering in this. This is bullshit.
Just
Any reason in particular? Just
this is stupid. I don't know. I think he's always had this thing that Andre should marry a tennis player. So I don't know how much he rates Brooke. That might be unfair. Why are you marrying this actor?
Yeah, love is like soft and will like ruin his competitive advantage.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Why do you need Hollywood? Anyway, they do get married, and I'd love to say they live happily ever after. But the main thing that Andre recalls about the following months is more meth. Him and Slim get high a lot. And apparently he hadn't considered that at some point this might show up in a drugs test, because he's just played the Stuttgart Open when a doctor from the ATP calls him, and they're like, I'm afraid you failed a drugs test. And he's like, oh, well, what drug? And they're like, methamphetamine. Apparently the doctor
There's loads of it in your system.
Apparently the doctor on the call is just like quite straight-faced about it, as if methamphetamine's like, you know, a performance enhancer that he's accidentally taken. He's not like, why are you on meth? Anyway, so Andre has to come up with this excuse, and actually he plays a blinder. So he fills out the form the ATP sent him, and he just blames it all on Slim, his assistant. He says that Slim often will just put meth in his soda just when he's at home. And Andre says, I accidentally picked up one of these sodas and drank it, and then I cleaned the house for 2 days.
Is that all they do? When you test positive for crystal meth, they just send you a form.
Well, so this is the thing.
explain
So the story never comes out until Agassi's book, 15 years later. So there's always this argument that the ATP just didn't want the drama. Whereas if it had been a performance enhancer, they might have, you know. But I mean, they're pretty. Yannick Sinner's just successfully submitted an appeal, let's say. So
Yes.
I don't know. I think you if you come up with a good enough excuse for meth.
Yeah.
Or maybe it's just so unlikely that, like, well, why the fuck would the world number one be snorting crank?
It's so self-sabotaging, isn't it?
So at this point, Andre's like, right, that was sailing too close to the wind. No more meth, and
We're done on the meth.
for now. And he's also like, I am gonna sort out my tennis again, because by this point he is slumped to world 141 in the rankings. He's just been losing loads. He's been injured. And he decides, okay, I'm going to begin my recovery. It doesn't start too well because Brooke decides to break off their marriage.
How long have they been married?
They actually did a couple of years. I'm kind of condensing timelines in parts. But she just says to him, look, like, we don't love each other. You're a crankhead. I'm a famous actress.
Always a fair reason, to be fair.
And so they break it off. But Andre's like, I'm going to rebuild my life. And he starts off playing in these like tiny challenger tournaments. Quite impressive. I like that. And he starts winning. Things improve. His ranking's going up. There is still the odd meltdown. So there's one tournament where he hits the ball out and he calls himself a cocksucker. And then and the line judge hears it and walks straight to the umpire and reports it, and he gets a warning. And then as the line judge is walking back, Andre's like, you're a cocksucker. At which point he's docked a point. And then as the linesman's walking back from that report, he goes, you're still a cocksucker. And the linesman reports him again, at which point the umpire calls him over and goes, Mr. Agassi, did you call him a cocksucker? And he's like, he is a cocksucker. And they just kick him out of the tournament. So it's still mental.
But I respect, you know...
Yeah, no one likes a grass.
Yeah, no one likes a grass. You know, it's colourful, it's interesting.
Yeah. And he's calling himself a cocksucker originally.
He's self-effacing.
Yeah, kind of. Anyway, things are about to really improve for Andre because he's about to finally get a proper meeting with none other than Steffi Graf. So, warming up for a tournament, Andre persuades Steffi Graf's coach to organise a hitting session between the two of them, which is sort of the closest thing you can get to in terms of a date on the tour. So the thing I really noticed from his book is not much shagging.
Yeah, the tennis players are so socially inept that is basically a date for them, I would say.
Anyway, he's like, I'm going to bring my A game, so he decides to come topless. It's quite a flex, I guess. He's in good shape at this point.
This is not Hamburger era.
No, I think the meth actually really suppresses the appetite.
Yeah, he was shredded.
Yeah, and you're doing quite aggressive hoovering while you're on it. So.
Wed shred, he's sweating out loads at the wedding.
At the wedding.
Then he's having the meth. Honestly, he's going to be like an anatomy chart.
Anyway, he describes it in quite romantic terms. He says every forehand was foreplay. So they're having this sort of this knock-up, which he thinks is like really sexual. You know that thing as well, yeah, like men, literally a woman will smile at a man and he's like, well, she obviously wants to fuck me. Like, I think he's got an element of that because he thinks it goes really well. And afterwards he sends her flowers with a note saying like, will you go out with me? And then he waits for the phone call. And it never comes. And he's waiting and waiting. And in the end, he's like, fuck it, I'm just going to call her. So he phoned Steffi Graf, and she's like, I really enjoyed hitting with you, but I don't want to give the wrong impression. I'm here with my boyfriend. And he's like, oh, for fuck's sake. So at that point, he's like, it's not happening. And he tells his coach, Steffi Graf is like the French Open. I just cannot get across that line. Just can't do it. Anyway, that prophecy doesn't last long, because in 1999, he's back at the top of his game, and he heads into the French Open, bidding to become only the 5th man to win all 4 Grand Slams, and he bloody does it. Not only that, but who wins the women's? Steffi Graf. They're joined together. There's a common bond. Actually, at this point, they're the only 2 people to win all 4 slams and an Olympic gold.
Do they have a dance at the French Open?
I don't think there is a dance at the French Open. I think it's all quite...
just chill.
Yeah, it's disappointing. But he's still trying to woo her, and they get to Wimbledon. He's like, that's it. Like, I can feel he's getting a bit more back in their encounters, and he starts taking her on these surreptitious dates, and he just grinds her down and eventually persuades Steffi to dump her boyfriend, and they become an item, and he finally gets the girl.
He did to Steffi Graf what he was worried Matt LeBlanc would do to him.
You're right. But he's done it, and so I think for him... I mean, I always wonder, like, how much has he sort of reverse engineered this story, having married her, that in his book he's like, we need to mention Steffi from the beginning. But it does sound like he was genuinely in love with and pursuing her from day one.
Yeah, I think that's believable.
Yeah, and they do.
And his dad's got his way. That his dad has. He's finally.
Yeah, because his dad is more head over heels than him, because Steffi Graf at the time this is pre-Williams sister dominance. She's the greatest tennis player of all time. Really. How many slams has she won? It's
like
nuts.
20.
It's a crazy number.
Ridiculous.
And so his dad is so happy, which it takes a lot.
Yeah, he might actually say something positive at this point in the story.
Although it does lead to a really funny encounter between his dad and Stephanie's dad. So they meet for the first time, and Andre says Steffi Graf's dad is just the German equivalent of Mike Agassi. He's just a mental, intense slave driver. And eventually they're like, oh, we want to meet, like get to know each other. So Steffi stays at home. She's like, I can't handle this. It's too much. And Andre's like, okay, I'll take him. They're in America. They go to Mike Agassi's house, which is Andre's childhood home. Still got the like court in the back with the machine rigged up.
The dragon.
The dragon. And Steffi's dad's like desperate to meet him, because obviously Agassi's like a star as well. And so they bring him over, and Steffi's dad's like, I want to see the dragon. So takes him out to the back garden. And they rig up this machine, and they make Andre start hitting it. And Andre's like, I felt like a 10-year-old again. I've got these 2 guys barking at me. And they're barking conflicting instructions. So you remember Steffi Graf's trademark was the Steffi slice? She had this amazing slice. And Steffi's dad starts being like, you need to learn this slice. You can't slice. And Agassi's like, dad's like, bullshit, Andre. Like, take the forehand early. And so they're having this like argument. They're getting more and more into it. They're grabbing the racket from each other's hands to demonstrate what they should be doing. At one point, Mike Agassi tells Steffi's dad that if he'd been her coach, she would have won double the number of slams. It's like ridiculous. Andre's like, okay, guys, just calm down. I'm going to go and get us some drinks. So he goes into the house, comes out with like a tray of iced teas, and there he finds Steffi Graf's dad and his own dad topless, having a boxing match, ducking and weaving, genuinely trying to knock each other out, and he manages to stop it just in time.
The anxiety, I don't know if you've had this with like your parents meeting your partner's parents, but it is an anxiety-inducing prospect, isn't it? And that is the worst possible way that could go. Because, you're always like, oh, well, everyone's always a bit self-critical about their parents, but actually they're fine and they're actually nice and blah, blah. And, but then, like, in his case, he can't be like that. He's like, my dad is Mike Agassi. And it's also that horrible theme, again, in Andre's life of, like, him going away from his dad and then just finding someone who's also fucking horrible again.
And then he's in this moment where he's trying to impress both of them, and they're disagreeing.
God.
Also,
and then they fight.
The amount of people that he's probably seen his dad knock out. And then you see your father-in-law. Just,
I love how Mike Agassi always persuades people to have a boxing match. Doesn't mention the 2 Olympic entries. Why does it have to be topless?
And he's just like, I'm just gonna pop into the kitchen. Comes out with like 2 shakers.
Maybe it is just sort of internalized like homoerotic desire that's coming out in a very complicated way as sort of physical.
Rip the top off. Yeah. It's quite sort of ancient Olympics, isn't it? Anyway, apparently he gets home after that and Steffi's like, so how did it go? And he's just like, yeah, fine. To be fair, Andre's a pretty interesting parent himself. So obviously he and Steffi marry and have kids. And it's, by all accounts, a very happy family. But he reveals in his book that the first time he was left looking after his son on his own, he decided to shave his head. Just a baby boy, just getting his first hair through. And Andre just wet shaves his head.
You better get used to this, man. It's coming for you.
It's a bizarre thing to do to your child.
Maybe he's trying to get him to not be attached to vanity in the same way that Andre was as a kid.
Yeah.
Maybe that's
and what better way than
genius?
Making him look fucking weird.
yeah.
There's something of the Mike Agassi about that.
There
That's
is
all
some
I'm
Mike
saying.
Agassi, yeah.
Or is it because he wants the kid to look like him?
Maybe, which again is
that type of horrible narcissism.
Again, is quite Mike Agassi. I think it's like, no, you need to suffer in the way I suffered. I don't think it's
with hair loss.
I think he is a very good dad by all accounts, but yeah. Anyway, this happy marriage with Steffi Graf actually leads to a real swan song in his career because he wins several slams in his mid-30s, really. Steffi retires once they get together, but he carries on. He goes on this amazing run. He does still have the odd mental moment. So in 2001, he's in the Wimbledon semi-final against Pat Rafter, and he's serving for match point for a place in the final. And he puts the first serve out and is so annoyed with himself that he screams, "Motherfucker!" Gets a warning from the umpire, and he's so incensed by this warning and gets so distracted by it that he ends up losing the match on tiebreak.
Yeah, because Ivanisevic beat Rafter, didn't he, in
Yeah.
the final?
Yeah.
Fuck.
Why, is that the famous Ivanisevic
Yeah.
wild
That
card?
was when he had the wild card, and he was like watching the Teletubbies every day.
Yeah,
He's
he's
strange,
mental
man.
as well.
He's fucking weird.
I had at school. I was about 12 when that happened. And my friend had a Bosnian Croatian mum who understood all the stuff Ivanisevic was saying to himself. And like Eastern European swearing, it's next level. It's like a dog fucks your grandmother in the pussy. That's like a genuine bit of, I think that's Serbian.
That's what Modric always says.
Yeah, Luka Modric, who's Croatian, says
really,
it.
Really.
Ivanisevic is what nationality? Don't want to get
He's
this wrong.
Croatian.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Do not want to get you
I
Balkans
promise
mixed up.
he's Croatian, I promise.
Okay, yeah, and so apparently
Is he? Fuck. No, he is.
We'll find out.
With him and the Djokovic fans, we're in trouble.
But anyway, apparently Ivanisevic used to rock some fucking creative Eastern European swearing.
Really?
Yeah. It's a nice story. It was the last really romantic Wimbledon winner, apart from Federer's first.
Yeah.
I guess Murray.
Yeah, Murray. Oh, my God.
But anyway, I mean, really,
I'm going to start crying, actually, if we talk about his career.
really, that should have been Andre Agassi winning that, but he couldn't swear in Croatian, so he couldn't do it. And that, we're really at the end of his career. He retires in 2005, and after that, there's a lot of focusing on his philanthropy for Andre. There is a lovely moment where he plays a charity match in 2009 when it's him and Nadal versus Sampras and Federer.
Yes.
So it's sort of like the old guard, the new guard, the two rivalries. I mean, Nadal and Federer always had quite a respectful rivalry, didn't they? Whereas Andre and Sampras, he describes it as a quasi-friendship, but he's quite interesting in the book about Sampras. So in his autobiography, Agassi says he won our rivalry. I think it's 17 wins to 11, 3 slam finals to 1, something like that. But he does have the odd jibe. So one of the digs he has at Sampras is that he's stingy, and he tells the story of he sees Sampras tipping a valet, who's taken his car at a restaurant, and afterwards he goes up to the valet and it's like, "Come on, how much?" And the valet reveals that Sampras tipped him $1. Which is, even in the 90s, is pretty fucking tight. So that's his sort of jibe. Anyway, they have this charity match in 2009. They're all mic'd up because it's really a sort of interview type match. And they're kind of encouraged to be a bit jocular. And, Nadal and Federer, say what you want about them, but they're sort of the gags are quite tame.
Oh, yeah. It's Roger, your hair is very nice today. And it's well, if you keep hitting your forehand like that, then I guess I will have to play well as well. And you're like, oh, my fucking God.
Yeah. Whereas Sampras and Agassi, I mean, Sampras, he's a quite boring guy, but he kind of knows what the crowd wants. At one point, he does an impression of Agassi's walk. He walks a bit like a pigeon.
Oh, yeah, it's good. I've seen that. Yeah,
and the crowd kind of love it. And, much like the famous Friends moment, everyone's loving it, apart from Andre Agassi, who's kind of fuming. And at this point, Andre hits back with a retort. I think we can watch the clip.
Oh, I haven't seen this.
Okay, Andre, I'll joke around a little bit. I'm going to imitate you.
Ooh. Oh, the walk.
Oh, it's blistering stuff. My God, how's he gonna deal with that?
I missed that pigeon-toed walk.
You can see Agassi's face.
Seething.
It's quite good, though.
Yeah, no, it's a good impression. It's funny. Here we go. Here it comes.
No comeback. Ah.
Say something. Say it.
I'm waiting. I want to impersonate you.
Okay, go ahead.
I don't have any money.
That's so funny.
Oh, about my tipping?
Oh,
Okay.
No, wait. I got $1.
Sampras looks really
he
fucked
does
up.
not like that at all.
That's how you want to play, huh?
It's all fun and games till somebody gets hurt, huh?
And then Sampras turned to serve.
Oh, and
right
he goes
after
for
that.
him.
Look at him. He can't help himself.
He smashes the ball.
Whoa!
So Sampras just smashes his serve straight at Agassi's head.
There's also just the awkward smiles on Federer and Nadal's faces who were just like, oh,
yeah. So because they're sort of politely talking about how they want to wank the other one off. Just like,
There's quite a good, afterwards they asked Nadal about it and he just goes, you know how fast Americans speak and I am a Spanish. I didn't understand nothing. Just has no clue.
I don't think Nadal understood a lot, to be honest, during his career. It's like...
Andre did apologise for the stingy jibe. He said, I was out of line, I was trying to be comedic. But I personally think he was just seething, judging that clip.
Yeah, I mean, that's pretty, like, going for him type stuff.
I don't have any money. So yeah, for the viewers' benefit, we'll link to it in the show notes, but he pulls both pockets out like they're empty and was like, I don't have any money.
He's like, oh, maybe I got $1, maybe I got $1. Sampras fucking hates
Him and
it.
Sampras are kind of friends, but that was quite a sort of heated moment.
the pigeon walk is just sort of light,
Oh, yeah.
gentle teasing, really.
It's also relatively flattering if someone's made that observation of you. I think if someone does an impression of you, and I know I've got a vested interest in this, but if someone does an impression of you, it's actually very nice.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank me.
Yeah, exactly.
Reporting me online.
yeah.
I mean, these days, Agassi, you don't see him that much. He dabbled in coaching for a bit, so he coached Djokovic for a year.
Yeah, but that
Apparently, they really fell out. Yeah.
Why do you know why because I don't. I have
He
no
just said
idea.
we disagreed all the time. Which I mean, does Djokovic need a coach? I don't know.
I don't know. I feel like he's his own monster, isn't he? He's
He had Boris Becker for a while, didn't he, as well?
yeah,
That's a worse choice, I think.
Yeah, but what he got like 8 slams from it, right?
Okay,
'Cause he was
yeah.
sitting there playing chess and eating manuka honey from bees in the forests with the wolves. But it's hard to know in that one who the more mental one is, whether it is Djokovic, because he's just like, for 12 days I will go into a silent retreat and only think about green tea or whatever, or whether it's Agassi just being like, Novak, you gotta shave your head, man. I don't know where.
Yeah, maybe they could counteract each other.
Do you think that was the thing?
Yeah.
That was the thinking.
That was, yeah.
I mean, I like him. But
I think
he's a mental-
we will do a Djokovic episode.
Yeah.
Sort of waiting for retirement, but could be waiting a long
Yes.
time.
Yeah, because he's done some. I mean, all the Adria Tour stuff, right? It's
Yeah,
fucking amazing.
we'll do it. Let's save it because we'll do. I guess next year maybe we could do it.
Yeah,
together.
I'll probably be retiring then.
You are invited. You passed the audition.
I have made the tennis. I have made the final.
Yeah, so I guess all that's left is sort of to give your verdict on Andre Agassi. I mean, like, where does he rank in sort of
mental tennis
tennis players? Who else is the competition?
Well, I mean, Boris is the gold standard.
Who would you rather be friends with? It's Boris, isn't it?
Do you think? I think I prefer to be friends with Agassi.
I think Agassi's a lot more loyal than Boris.
Yeah, he'd give you more back. But
Yeah.
Boris, I think you'd have a bit more of a wild time.
You would, but I feel like Boris would sack you off more readily. Oh, would he? Maybe not. Maybe he wouldn't. I don't know. I feel I'm getting from Agassi though. I'm getting maybe a bit more of a kind of loyal vibe.
He's a decent person as well. I'm not saying Boris is a bad guy, but Andre Agassi, I think from this story, I think he's a good guy who had a tough fucking childhood, played his cards quite well.
He hasn't done anything really in any of those stories where you're like, oh, what a terrible bloke.
Yeah, there's nobody's come out saying fuck Andre Agassi. Everybody seems to have a good impression of him, which is maybe not the case with Boris Becker.
Yeah. I don't know. I kind of like him. I think he's interesting. I think he's. I don't know. I was going to say he's quite sensitive, but I don't think I think he's actually like incredibly well adjusted.
Yeah, considering.
Yeah.
Final question, because we're running out of time. Would you take his life? You have to have the childhood. You have to. No.
Categorically not. Would you?
8 slams.
Nah.
Clean the whole house in a day. Brooke Shields.
No way. Would
Barbara Streisand.
Barbara
Steffi
Streisand,
Graf.
yeah.
No, God, it sounds like hell. I'd
sounds
rather
absolutely
live
awful.
my miserable existence.
Yeah, he's come out well the other side, but overall, a lot of hell at the start.
Highs and lows. It was the 90s. It's what we did.
Yeah, people threw shit on each
Would
other.
like to meet Mike Agassi. He's no longer with us, but that would
When did he shuffle off this mortal coil?
2021. Yeah.
20, really? He had a good innings.
He did. He wrote a book as well about Agassi, which I have not read, but I imagine has some
that would be
great
good.
deluded memories of giving him speed age 10. Right, we are out of time. So, Josh, thanks a lot.
Thank you as ever for
Love
having
that.
me on. It's always a joy.
Please
it's always
come
a
back.
treat. I'd love to do a non-tennis one. I need to brush up on
Well,
the non-tennis one.
we are
Please do.
mooting a non-sport spin-off of the Upshot.
Oh, are you?
Just
Brilliant.
famous names.
Oh,
so.
I love that.
Oh, is there anything you want to plug?
No, I'm far too. That's far too vulgar
Well,
for
for
this.
a-
I don't want to lower the tone.
But
No. I know. I have not.
Follow Josh on it.
Genuinely, no. Don't follow me, please. I really don't want any.
at Josh Berry Comedy
No,
on
don't.
Instagram.
I want you to just no. Why can't we just create art and just enjoy it in the context which is intended? You don't need to come. I don't want that. I just want you to enjoy this and then come back and listen to it again.
At Josh Berry Comedy. Catch his tour. All the details are on there.
I'm going on tour, but it doesn't matter, you know.
And thank you, Zach.
No, it'll be good.
Thanks a lot for listening.